On the 1st of Feb each year, the Finance Minister announces the budget for the upcoming financial year. This highly anticipated event brings both excitement and apprehension to the public. However, the budget can often contain complex terms and jargon that can be tough to understand. I am Meghna Chadda from Economic Times, and today we'll simplify 10 terms that you're likely to encounter in the upcoming budget. Number 1. Interim budget. It refers to the government's budget that's going through a transition period. In simple terms, a budget being presented in an election year, such as this one, is known as an interim budget. Number 2. Fiscal deficit. A fiscal deficit arises when the government's expenditure has exceeded its income. It represents the gap between the total revenue and the total spending of the government, which is typically covered by borrowings. These borrowings not only increase the debt burden of the government, but also add to the interest that the government has to pay every year on its debt. On number 3, we have appropriation bill. After discussions on budget proposals and voting for demand for grants, the government introduces appropriation bill in the Lok Sabha. Now, this bill is intended to give authority to the government to withdraw money from the Consolidated Fund of India to meet its expenses during the financial year. The government also needs to get permission from Parliament to access these funds. So basically, all the revenues received, loans raised and funds received by the government in repayment of loans are credited to the Consolidated Fund of India. All expenditures of the government are also incurred from this fund, so the money can only be spent if the fund is appropriated by the Parliament. On number 4, we have finance bill. While the appropriation bill gives power to the government to withdraw money from the Consolidated Fund of India, it is the finance bill that gives power to the government to collect taxes from people. The bill basically contains government's financial plans like taxation, revenue, expenditure and borrowing for a particular financial year. Proposals about modifications to the tax slabs, tax rates and exemptions are also made in the finance bill. However, the Rajya Sabha can recommend amendments to this bill. It needs to be passed by the Parliament within 75 days of its introduction. Number 5. Budget estimates. This refers to the amount allocated in the budget to a particular ministry or scheme for the coming financial year. Number 6. Revised estimates. Revised estimates are basically mid-year estimates based on 6 months' actual trends that take into account the likely expenditure and receipts for the remaining year. On number 7, we have revenue deficit. So a revenue deficit occurs when the government's total revenue expenditure exceeds its revenue receipts. This happens when the actual amount of revenue does not correspond with the budgeted revenue. This is also an important control indicator because if the revenue expenditure disbursement exceeded receipts, the government will have to borrow. Now, such borrowing is considered regressive as it is for consumption and not for creating assets. On number 8, we have non-tax revenue. Non-tax revenue refers to the income that the government earned from sources apart from taxes. It basically includes government's earnings from interest on loans, dividends on investments such as from PSUs, fees and earnings for the services it provides. On number 9, we have disinvestment. Now, disinvestment is a financial strategy that involves selling or liquidating assets. It is commonly associated with the government selling shares in state-owned or public sector firms and other assets to raise funds. On number 10, we have minimum alternative tax or MAT. Now, this is the minimum tax that a company is liable to pay even if it doesn't come in the tax-paying bracket. Well, that's all in this video. Thank you for watching.